Hello and welcome to the Poor Hammer Podcast, episode 12. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
We're going to be going through the shield hosts of the Adeptus Custodes today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of them, and they actually kind of are neat, which is weird for Custodes, because that's a boring fucking army, dude.
This is from the Grey Knight player. All right, let's jump in.
Sounds good. All right, so there are 6 different unique shield hosts. Each one's going to give you fighting styles that have 2 traits, a stratagem, a warlord trait, and a relic.
And a favored kata.
Which, do you want to go ahead and explain what katas are?
Okay, most people who are familiar with Custodes at this point know with the new codex, there's the katas, which are their stand-in for doctrines or any other, turn-based mechanic. There's 2 in the AdMech book. Necrons have a very useless one we ignore.
It's the rules that allow them to just do whatever they want to do just because the rulebook says they get to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, it's just on any given turn you get a bunch of bonuses.
Yeah.
Katas have a very annoying, complex way that they work, where you pick 3 of them that must be done in that order, but you can skip past portions of one, because they each have 2 subsections, and you pick one of the 2 on each turn. It's a little weird. We're not getting into that on this episode. We'll just bring them up for the use case for the preferred kata of the shield host, which for preferred katas, it means on one turn, you can get both of your preferred kata's stances without eating up using one of them. So you can go, on turn 1, you do stance 1. On turn 2, you go, I'm going to get both stances, even though I already burned stance 1.
Right.
Or you could do it in the opposite order and say, I'm going to select stance 1, but I'm going to get stance 2 anyway, and then next turn I'll get to choose stance 2 if I want.
Yeah, it's nice. It adds that little bit of flair to why you would choose shield hosts. You can use both of the stances, even though you've maybe used one of them already.
I think for 1 or 2 of the shield hosts, the kata is the deciding factor for me as to why I would play that one.
Oh, okay.
We'll get into our thoughts on each one.
Yeah.
A specific one comes to mind. Before we get into the specifics, I do want to point out, we will mention how competitive a shield host may be versus others, but that's not the focus. This is just us hyping up each shield host for ideas for why you would play each shield host.
Right. I mean, these are interesting and unique things in the Custodial list that, yeah, some are going to be more competitively minded, but they all have something that's interesting, which, we'll bring up.
Yes, all 6 have at least one thing that's interesting. 5 of them have multiple things that are interesting.
All right, let's get into our base one, Emperor's Chosen. So I guess we'll start off with the fighting style. So Emperor's Chosen, the fighting style is Magna and Peyruis. And the 2 traits. The first trait is each time a unit with this trait is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 hit roll or 1 wound roll when resolving that unit's attack. Second trait is each time a model in a unit with this trait would lose a wound roll as a result of a mortal wound, roll a d6 on a 4-up. The wound is not lost. And the kata is Rendax?
Yeah. And then Rendax is the one that has the first stance is each time a model in this unit makes an attack against a vehicle or monster unit, an unmodded hit roll of 6 automatically wounds. And the second stance is each time a model in this unit makes a melee attack against a vehicle or monster unit, if that model's unit made a charge move, was charged, or performed a heroic intervention this turn, add 1 to the strength characteristic of that attack.
Emperor's Chosen has the stratagem Esteemed Amalgam, which is 1 CP and can be used in the command phase. You select 1 Emperor's Chosen unit from your army, then select 1 other shield host fighting style. Until the start of your next command phase, the models in that unit have the traits of that shield host's fighting style instead of the traits of Magna and Peyruis fighting style. The warlord trait that they have is Auric Exemplar. Each time this warlord fights, after resolving all of its attacks, it can make a number of additional attacks equal to the number of enemy models destroyed as a result of its attacks during that fight, up to a max of 4.
And it's got the relic, which is Paragon Spear, which is for an Emperor Chosen model equipped with a Guardian Spear. You replace it with the Paragon Spear, which is the shooting mode, is a range 24, rapid fire 1, strength 5, -1 AP, flat 2 damage. And then the melee profile is strength +3, AP -5, damage flat 2 as well.
Okay, so that's a lot of stuff.
I'll say it flat out. The relic means nothing to me. The AP on it is hilarious, but I don't care.
It is a lot, but I mean, at the same time, is it worth a relic?
If this relic folded in, there's a warlord trait for one of the other shield hosts where they don't take invuls.
Yeah.
If this spear had that wording, it would be a debatable relic. As it stands, it's just not worth taking over generic relics.
Yeah. I mean, some of their generic relics are pretty decent.
Oh man, they are.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those that, like, this is not just, oh, you just get this relic because it's fine, but, like, the other options that you're losing out on taking are legitimate losses to take the Paragon Spear instead. That said, the fighting style is pretty nice. It's just generically good, right?
I want to call this the shonen main character subfaction.
I was going to call it the vanilla faction, but...
To me, it's got your basic, boring, normal traits, right? Like just good stuff traits. The salamander reroll a hit, reroll a wound thing that they got taken away for being too good. And then your part 2 is just mortal wounds half the time don't deal any damage to you.
Yeah, 4-up is like, that's pretty doable.
It's better than your faction's actual ability.
Yeah.
So on that front, it's very boring. And then the reason I say it's like a shonen protagonist is I'm imagining like Bleach, where every arc you get a new superpower that's whatever the arc's theme is.
Right. This is how I get to cheat because of friendship or whatever. I get to do this thing.
It's really kind of annoying to me because it's very good.
Oh, yeah.
But the Esteemed Amalgam, 1 CP, just choose any other subfaction, you're that subfaction for the turn. That's so dumb.
Yeah, I mean, it only works on, like, per unit type thing, so you don't, like, change the entire army.
Yeah, but it means the one unit where you go, aw, shucks, I wish I had picked the other oh, wait.
Yeah, like, this is the perfect time to do this other subfaction. I guess I can for 1 CP, thanks.
Especially because there is one subfaction, Emissaries Imperatus. Its traits are very narrow, in my opinion. It would be very nice if you had to commit a bit more and actually pick this subfaction. But I feel like if you were ever looking at that subfaction, other than for one trick that I want to bring up when we get there,
you just take Emperor's Chosen.
Yeah, and you just take Emperor's Chosen and just spend a CP when you need it.
Yeah. I do think that the fact that it's so low of just 1 CP is, like, why I don't particularly like it.
0 punishment.
Yeah. Like, if it was 2, it would be like, okay, that's a substantial commitment to making this happen. It would still probably be useful and good, but, like, 1 CP is just like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
I feel like I'd hate Esteemed Amalgam less if it was a generic, because this is something like Space Marines have the Swap Doctrine stratagem, like everyone gets a version of it. I could see that being like a generic strat, and it's like, not a big fan of having that much control over your subfaction, but whatever. But because it's locked Emperor's Chosen, it kind of makes me annoyed with Emperor's Chosen.
Right.
It's very good.
Honestly, if it was just a generic strat, it would probably cost 2 CP.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, they would have costed it 2 or maybe 3 CP, you know, one of those, like, oh, if you chose a unit of whatever number, but because it's locked to a shield host, they're like, oh, we can give you a discount.
Yeah. So the traits, very good, very all-rounder. If you don't know what you want to do, you're still learning your army. Maybe stick to your Emperor's Chosen, learn the army like that, and then start switching it up.
Yeah, I think Emperor's Chosen's fantastic for learning the army and learning everything, because Esteemed Amalgam's also going to help you learn the other ones as well.
Yeah. And your preferred kata is like a very bleh kata, so there's not like a big push for that being a part of this shield host's allure. Yeah. It's basically just like you tend to have fewer very good attacks, meaning the reroll a hit, reroll a wound for every unit is big. Mm-hmm. And one of the best ways to kill Custodes is with mortal wounds, as every Custode player will tell you.
Yeah.
And you cover that weakness. Like, The two traits carry this so hard, and then Esteemed Amalgam is so good when you need it that, like, while it's not my favorite by a long shot, it's near the bottom of what I like. It's just a very solid starting shield host. And I would say it's probably the one, it makes sense. This is the default shield host, like lore-wise. This is their Ultramarines. It's boring but efficient.
I do actually kind of like the Warlord trait, Auric Exemplar, that lets you do additional attacks. It seems fun.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's good. It seems fun.
When we were talking about picking your cult in Thousand Suns, we were like trying to compare like how cool they all are, and then you kind of have to like compare them to the generic relics and warlord traits. The generic warlord traits for Custodes are fucking dumb.
They're really good.
They're so dumb.
Like Radiant Mantle, Superior Creation.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah. Any other faction, one of those two would be, oh, why'd you print this? I'm never going to pick anything else.
Right.
This faction has two of those sitting there, and there's still other things that are debatable versus them. Their warlord traits are so insane.
Yeah. Which is, it makes the fact that, like, you get a warlord trait in the shield hosts kind of disappointing. Because, like, as fun as Auric Exemplar is as a trait, it's probably just not good comparatively to the other things you could take generically. But, I mean, it would be fun, right?
Yeah, so Emperor's Children, highly rated from a how good is it, but it's not my cup of tea.
All right. What about the next one, Shadowkeepers?
This is my cup of tea. It's not my favorite, but it's my second favorite. And in some ways, it's my favorite for certain things. So let's start off. Shadowkeepers. You have your Wardens of the Dark Cells, which is trait 1. While an enemy unit is in engagement range of a unit with this trait, subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of each model in that enemy unit. I'm going to say this right now. Pretend the FAQ is out. You can't take things below 1 attack. We just got slapped with this in Thousand Suns. Don't try it.
Yeah, just don't. Yeah. The fact that they didn't put that in there, whatever.
It's good enough. You don't have to make it so that half of the models in the game don't even get to attack you.
Yeah, all right. Like, putting them to 1 is already good enough.
So, trait 2. Each time a model in a unit with this trait makes an attack against a character, you can reroll the wound, which is huge.
Yeah.
It's got the favored Martial Kata as Keptaris. So it has 2 stances. First stance, each time a melee attack is made against this unit, the hit roll cannot be rerolled. And stance 2, each time an enemy unit, excluding vehicle and monsters, is in engagement range of an infantry from your army with this ability, when it's selected to fall back, roll off with your opponent, adding 1 to your opponent's roll if the unit can fly. If you win the roll off, that enemy unit cannot fall back. It's very wordy, but it's the witch fallback thing.
Shadowkeepers also have the stratagem Grim Responsibility. It's 1 CP any phase when a Shadowkeeper unit from your army is selected as a target of an attack, non-vehicle. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is made against that unit, subtract 1 from the strength characteristic of that attack. They have the Warlord trait, LiQWYD. Each time an attack made by this Warlord is allocated to a character unit, an invulnerable saving throw cannot be made against this attack. And they've got the relic Stasis Oubliette. I don't know how to say that word. I think it's like an actual word, but...
It is. It's French, though, so no one cares.
This is for Shadowkeeper models. At the start of the fight phase, select 1 enemy within engagement range of the bearer. That unit is not eligible to fight this phase until after all eligible units from your army have done so.
Okay, so Shadowkeepers is the typical Custodes meme unkillable.
Yeah.
Everything this does is defensive.
Yeah.
So, the Stasis Oubliette being a fight last ability, neat. LiQWYD is actually kind of weird in Shadowkeepers from a, like, everything else is very defensive, and this is very offensive.
But, I mean, it's one of those that, like, you still have to kill your opponent, so it's nice. As, like, everything else is defensive, this just says, okay, this is how I kill him.
Grim Responsibility probably gave some of the players in our audience Vietnam flashbacks.
Non-vehicle.
It has been nerfed to non-vehicle. You can no longer get your strength reduced by 1 when you're targeting their Telemon.
Yeah. I mean, still 1 CP is...
It's still great.
Yeah. Like, very defensive for everything that's going on with the traits.
Yeah. Bikes aren't vehicles, by the way.
Which is dumb, but...
Your Captaris one for not being able to reroll hit rolls is another great defensive thing. And then your traits of remove an attack, like
yeah.
You have so many layers of defense, and then you can combine it with the generic Warlord traits that are defensive of your -1 to hit. You have a 5-up feel no pain. It is impossible to kill Shadowkeeper's characters without like spamming mortal wounds at them.
Yeah, that is true. This doesn't stop the smite mortal wound bullshit.
Yeah. Again, all Custodes have the 6-up versus mortal wounds by default, but that's nothing compared to the Chosen having the 4-up.
Yeah. I mean, Shadowkeepers, it feels very Custodes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the unmovable object. Don't even try. Like, do something else, because you're not going to kill me.
Yeah. And while Dreadhost, which is our next one, is my actual favorite, Shadowkeepers is probably one of the 2 most competitive options, and it's still one of my favorites, so like I don't feel bad picking this if I'm going to play it.
Yeah.
As far as my brother's concerned, it's like one of his favorites, and he's our Custodes player mainly.
That's kind of what I was thinking of. Like, out of all of them, Shadowkeepers feels the most like what you would be, why you decided to play Custodes, right?
Yeah. You stack up all of your stuff onto like your bike captain, you ram him into combat, and your opponent just stares as they like try to process how many layers of defense they have to get through to deal damage to this thing.
Yeah, as they process the fact that it's basically unkillable and it's in their fucking face.
Yeah. So I love Shadowkeepers, especially for things like making a big unkillable bike captain. The stratagem is just so spammable and so good that you're going to use it every turn. It might as well say -5 CP over the game.
Probably, yeah.
If your opponent is failing to attack you, you might not use it, but there are very few cases where you can't find over the course of a turn where -1 strength to an attack isn't worth a CP.
Yeah.
If your opponent has 0 offensive power, like they're playing, I don't know, Tzeentch Demons.
There could be certain setups where it's like that weapon's strength characteristic -1 doesn't really do that much versus your toughness.
But I'm saying not for like each attack. I'm saying for each turn of a game.
There'll be something.
Yeah.
And it's another one of those, like, the Warlord trait probably won't get picked. But when it does, I think it'll be picked for a very good reason.
It'll be cute. So for me, the Warlord trait, my big problem is I don't know how many ways there is to get a lot of AP in Custodes, other than what we'll talk about in a minute.
I was like, the Paragon Sphere, -5, dude.
But that one, again, different
Yeah.
shield host. So, like, I guess if you're taking, like, the Obliteratum or the Veiled Blade, those have high AP.
I mean, even just a AP -3 is pretty solid.
It's fine, but I don't know if it's worth my Warlord trait then.
Yeah, that's true. Just because the other Warlord traits are good.
That's where my problem with Lockwarden is. And it feels kind of out of place. Like, lore-wise, I understand what Lockwarden means for Shadowkeepers, but on the page as rules, it's the one that doesn't match.
Yes.
You could argue that it has to deal with the trait, too, of rerolling wounds. Like, all right, maybe. And the whole Captaris stance 2, which is the, I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me.
Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense, where it's like, okay.
I will say, Shadowkeepers, again, when I talked about how some of them, the kata puts them over the edge, Shadowkeepers getting to use stance 1 2 turns in a row can just decimate certain armies that rely on rerolls. Like, that is a lot of extra value over the course of 2 turns of, you know, being in melee combat or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that you get to, like, choose which turn you're going to be doing those back-to-back essentially is most likely turn 2, turn 3 can be pretty backbreaking.
Yeah. Like, imagine, like, Space Wolves in Melee in their Captain Aura not being able to reroll. Thunderhammers suddenly look pretty awkward.
Yeah. There's a lot of heavy hitting weapons that rely on the reroll just because they're not good at, like, getting it the first time. The chances are low.
Just like you said with the heavy hitting weapons, like, things like your Mortarion or something, you can't CP reroll your big hit.
Yeah.
That's a reroll. You can't spend the CP to reroll it.
Yeah. And, like, if you're turning that off, that's saving so much.
Yeah. It makes those awkward misses horrifying.
Yes. That's enough Shadowkeepers. Let's move on to Dreadhost.
My actual favorite. I'll do fighting styles for us. So you have Instrument of the Emperor's Wrath, which trait 1 is each time a model in a unit with this trait makes an attack that targets an enemy unit within 9 inches of it, the armor penetration characteristic of the attack is improved by 1. And the second trait is you can reroll charge rolls for units with this trait. The martial kata of choice is fuck you, GW. Dakatarai.
I like the Daka though. I'm all aboard the Daka train.
It's got Daka. So Dakatarai has the first stance is each time an enemy unit piles in or consolidates. If it starts that move within engagement range of this unit, subtract 2 inches from the distance models in that enemy unit can move for that pile-in or consolidation. It also has the second stance, which is each time this unit fights, it can use this ability. Note that this can use this ability. It doesn't lock you into using it.
Right.
If it does so, then until that fight is resolved, add 1 to the attack's characteristic of models in that unit, and change the damage characteristic of melee weapons they are equipped with to 1.
It is nice that you get to choose, because sometimes you don't want to change that damage.
Yeah, it's nice because you have your one unit fighting a horde of guardsmen, and your other one trying to fight a Leman Russ, and you don't end up screwed on the Leman Russ.
Yeah. So the stratagem, Golden Light of the Emissaries. 2 CP in movement phase when a Dreadhost unit from your army is set up on the battlefield using the From the Light ability. Until the start of your next turn, you get each time an attack is made against that unit, subtract 1 from that attack hit roll, and each time that unit declares a charge, enemy units that were targeted by that charge cannot fire Overwatch or set to defend against that charge. The Warlord trait, All-Seeing Annihilator. God, these names are so...
Okay, we'll get to it, but I have opinions.
Yeah.
Continue.
Alright, All-Seeing Annihilator is in your command phase, select this Warlord or one friendly Dreadhost core unit within 6 inches of this Warlord. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, an unmodified hit roll of 6 scores 1 additional hit. And the Relic, Admoni Mortis. So this is Dreadhost with a Castellan Axe, replaces that. The shoot characteristic, 24 inches, rapid fire 1, strength 5, AP -1, damage 2. The melee characteristic is strength +3, AP -3, and damage 3.
The Big Axe.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I feel like the AP should be...
You feel like the AP should be -4 because trait 1 makes it always -4?
Yeah, but I feel like it should be -4 so that it becomes -5. This is a relic, dude.
If you had swapped All-Seeing Annihilator and Lockwarden, they would have made so much more sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Because then you see the Warlord trait next to this relic and you go, duh, I want to do that.
Yeah, that's a combo right there.
That's what we call a combination. I will say, All-Seeing Annihilator, when I was reading through this codex, it was the one where I stopped and I was like, Imperium players are so cringe. And
it's like the entire time, too. Like, Grim Responsibility, Instruments of the Emperor's Wrath.
That part's like, alright, it's just haughty. I get it. That's their shtick. But a child named this. All-Seeing Annihilator. I have the Mega Super Death Laser.
It feels very Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yes.
I summon my Exodia who uses All-Seeing Annihilator.
So All-Seeing Annihilator, when you read the flavor text under it, it's like, okay, I kind of get it. The point is supposed to be the information network is the all-seeing thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's cute. And it makes the Warlord trait funnier because you can have the Warlord have a core unit within 6 get 6s explode, right?
Yeah.
So in reality, what that is the Warlord knows the enemy's like secret weakness because of the information network, and he just whispers, "Kick him in the nuts."
Yeah. So, Dreadhost, overall thoughts?
This is my favorite subfaction. So, one of my things with Custodes has always been they're so good defensively.
Yeah.
Why are you stacking more defense?
Yeah, like the base stat line and what you get is already defensive.
You're ridiculous. You have a 2-up fucking save on your non-Terminators.
Which is sweet.
At what point should we stop pumping into defense and make sure that we can actually remove our opponent, which is probably, the whole, the best defense is a good offense?
I mean, at a point, the best defense being Shadow Keepers of more defense can just be...
It's true. At a certain point, maybe it's so ridiculous, the math works out to never let you die, which is probably why Shadow Keepers is my second place. But yeah. So Dreadhost fixes that by being the offensive one. So the armor penetration, trait 1, is why I'm here.
Yeah.
It's every attack in your army has an extra AP if you're in 9 inches. So ranged attacks, if you're in 9 inches, get an extra AP. More importantly, it does not say ranged attacks. It's all of your melee in the whole army, because you have to be in 9 inches. All of your melee has an extra AP than it looks like.
Which is...
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And you don't have to spend CP to reroll your charges, which is nice. You just always get to reroll every charge. It's a nice add-on for the melee-focused Dreadhost.
I was like, it actually helps a lot for what Dreadhosts would be trying to do, which is get up in combat and kill them.
And as much as I hate the name Dakatarai, it's actually a very good preferred kata to pair with Dreadhost. Because again, one of the problems with Custodes is they have very good stat lines, very good attacks, but because there are so few models, they have very few attacks, which is again why you get a ton of value in an army like this out of Emperor's Chosen with the reroll 1 attack, because like that's not very much when you have 10 dudes with 4 attacks each, but when you have 3 guys, suddenly there's a lot less attacks and you're getting a lot higher percent of value off that reroll.
Each one matters more.
Yeah, and it helps that, 2 through 6 all hit.
Right. So, the thing that I wasn't sure about the Dakatarai is stance 1 the pile-in type stuff?
Oh, it's fucking obnoxious.
Is it just obnoxious or is it good? I can't tell.
Okay, so anti-pile-in and anti-consolidation are very good, and it's very possible the default when you're not playing against like Guard or Carpet Nids or, piles of Drukhari Witches or something. Okay. It's very possible stance 1 is more correct. If you're playing against things like Death Guard, stance 2 is still correct, because your damage to weapons on all of your weapons
would go down to 1.
They get put to 1 anyway, so you might as well choose stance 2 twice and have 2 turns of an extra attack.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, stance 1 does still have its uses.
But my problem with stance 1, it's very strong, because being able to limit them from 3 inches plus 3 inches to 1 inch plus 1 inch.
Yeah.
That is a lot less movement to fix things so that they can get all their models in to hit you.
Or even get into the point objective control with enough models to take it.
Exactly. It helps on all that, but it's really obnoxious when you're playing.
Yeah.
And you're like trying to like make sure that he's only moving the inch and like no one's cheating. And it just feels very...
And like, you have to make sure that your opponent like understands like, okay, you can't do 3 inches. So wherever your moves are going, you have to make sure that you understand that afterwards you only get 1.
Yeah.
So plan accordingly.
It makes people play more cautiously and slowly. It's very awkward in a lot of actual management ways. It's still very strong. It's just, it's got the logistical downside.
Okay.
Stance 2 to me is just, there's a lot of matchups where 2 turns of that is a big game.
So, the stratagem. That's cool.
It's not good.
It's cool, though.
It's really, really awkward, because if you were to read this, like you're a lore-centric Vorthos style player like me, you're reading your lore and all happy about it and how it lines up. You read this lore and it's talking about how they have like teleporters so fucking badass, you can start charging on the ship and finish charging in combat. And it's like, how fucking badass is that? Then you read the ability, it does not make it easier to charge in any way.
Yeah. I was like, that sounds cool as shit, dude.
You'd think this is like the 2 CP, okay, I'm going to get to drop an inch or two closer, and it makes a charge much more statistically reliable.
Right.
No. This is where it gets really awkward. The stratagem is used when you drop in from Deep Strike.
Yeah.
For 2 CP.
Which is a lot.
I drop in from Deep Strike, I blow 2 CP. What do I get out of it? My opponent can't overwatch or set defend. Woohoo. Against Custodes.
There are certain cases that the non-Overwatch could matter, but yeah, you're Custodes. You're not spending 2 CP on that.
And then the other part is, I don't get that 2 CP back if I fail the charge, because the other half doesn't do anything if you fail the fucking charge.
Right, yeah.
It's real hard for me to be subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll in the combat phase when I'm not getting there.
Yeah. It's a cool ability. Like, it sounds fun, but when you actually think about it, not so much.
I will say, okay, someone will shout at me for this. It does have the yucky use. It's still good, which is you spend the 2 CP when you deep strike, and it's your -1 to hit until your next turn, no matter what. So even if you weren't trying to charge in, this is just 2 CP to make something -1 to hit for a whole battle round.
Sure, but are you really going to spend 2 CP on that? Maybe?
It's possible you would.
I don't see, like, it would be one of those, like, okay, yeah, this happened because I'm using Dreadhost for other reasons, and it just worked. Like, I'm not choosing Dreadhost with that in mind at all.
It's the thing that feels unintended.
Yeah.
Where, like, that's not what you were supposed to be using this for based off the lore reason for it. Like,
yeah.
We're just abusing how it's written so that we just, drop in, pay 2 CP, and have dense cover for the turn.
Yeah.
But I will say, Admoni Mortis, I fucking love that axe.
Yeah?
Holy shit. So the axe, everyone complained about this, and I agree. Custody players, as much as you're all whiny bitches about this codex, and it's very good, the axe is a fucking miss. The default axe. So the shooting profile for the axe, by default, is rapid fire 1, 4, -1, 2. And then the melee profile is +3, -2, damage 2. Even though you already get your damage 2 from your spear. So, like,
right.
Is the axe really going to do better? Because, like, the spear's got the extra AP on it versus the axe. It's a little awkward.
But you get strength.
You get 1 strength. And it often lines up where it's like,
yeah.
I really wish the axes had been, like, the +5 points, but it's a damage 3 weapon. Because there really isn't damage 3 weapons in this army, which is something that's really rough in certain matchups.
Yeah.
Anytime someone's abusing a -1 damage thing, Custodes are going to feel it real bad. Which, again, more reason Dreadhost is so good.
So you just get more attacks at 1.
Yeah. But Admoni Mortis, I'm a big fan of, even though it's probably not the best thing to be spending your relic on. I don't care.
Dude, there's some pretty good generic relics, so
yeah.
I don't know about that.
Since I made our dumb Terminator when we did Thousand Suns.
Yeah.
And I played that Terminator the other weekend against you.
Yeah.
It's still not very good. But I still love him. I made this Terminator in a Dreadhost. So it's a Shield Captain Terminator. Alaris Terminator armor, whatever. It costs you 145 points, and you have to spend an extra CP because it's got Victor of the Blood games for double Warlord traits.
Okay, I mean, that's a good amount of investment.
Honestly, the 145. And Custodes, it's not that much. So I have on this guy, he's my Warlord because we're doing that.
You gonna take the All-Seeing Annihilator?
Nope. So we have Admoni Mortis. So we've got our big fuck-off axe.
Yeah.
I paid the 20 points to make him Bane of Abominations because that is the upgrade that the Alaris Terminator Captain can take for 20 points to get each time the model makes a melee attack against a monster, vehicle, or character. Add 1 to the wound roll.
Okay.
Which, to be honest, this guy fucks so hard in combat. He's usually going to be going against monsters, vehicles, or characters. Like, he's not here for chaff.
Yeah, you're trying to kill problematic things, not a group of troops.
So he's going to just be +1 to wound roll most of the time.
Yeah.
He's got his normal aura, and then I gave him Radiant Mantle, which is each time you make an attack against the Warlord, you have to subtract 1 to hit.
Yeah.
And Superior Creation, the 5-up, Feel No Pain. So he's a tanky boy.
Yeah. Those two mixed together are so irritating.
He's already an 8 wound, 5 toughness model to begin with.
Nice.
With his 2-up save, 4-up invuln.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, 2-up save, 4-up invuln, 5-up Feel No Pain. Also, he's -1 to be hit. And offensively, he hits like a truck with -4 AP, flat 3 damage, strength 8 with +1 to wound against monsters, vehicles, and characters. Basically anything that would be a 4 is a 3.
Yeah.
So basically always wounding on 3s or 2s.
That's pretty good.
He is a big boy.
That's pretty good.
So there we go. I did what was required based off our 1 episode pattern.
And rerolling charge rolls so he can make sure that he gets in.
Yep, even better.
I like it, dude. I like it.
And because he has Terminator armor, he can deep strike just by default. So there's a whole lot working for him here for being a Dreadhost captain.
Yeah, I think Dreadhost is what you said. Like, that's the way to get people dead. Moving on. Next up, we've got Aquilian Shield.
So Aquilian Shield is one that I heard some smack talk against when it was first revealed, and I gotta fight it.
Really? Okay.
So their fighting style is Gilded Guardians. Trait 1 for which is core units with this trait are eligible to perform heroic interventions as though they were characters. Trait 2 is each time an attack with armor penetration characteristic of -1 is allocated to a model in a unit with this trait, that attack has an armor penetration characteristic of 0 instead. Their favorite kata is Salvus. Salvus has stance 1, add 4 inches to the range characteristic of ranged weapons models with this unit are equipped with. Stance 2 is if this unit is an infantry and does not advance in your movement phase, in the following shooting phase, if it is not within engagement range of any enemy units, models in this unit can shoot twice with auric weapons, which is all basic weapons.
Aquilian Shield has the stratagem, Shield of Honor. 1 CP in opponent's shooting phase. When an enemy unit is selected to shoot, select 1 Imperium infantry character unit from your army until the end of the phase, while that unit from your army is within 6 inches of a friendly Aquilian Shield core unit. Enemy units cannot target that character unit with ranged weapons. The Warlord trait, Revered Companion. Each time an attack is allocated to this Warlord, half the damage characteristic of that attack. Round up. And the Relic, Prettiest. So this is for Aquilian Shield models with the Prettiest shield. Each time an attack is made against the bearer, subtract 1 from that attack's wound roll. I feel like trait 2 can be very strong against certain setups.
So trait 2 is why I saw people getting annoyed, and I think they misunderstand it.
Okay, because like I'm trying to look through here and like nothing seems too powerful, but it all seems solid, and like trait 2 seems useful. I mean, not in every instance. Like sometimes if they're hitting you with big fuck off weapons, it's still going to be big, just slightly smaller.
Before we get into this, I'm not going to argue Aquilian Shield is the best competitive choice. Maybe it is in testing, but I doubt it. However, people were misunderstanding the usage. Trait 2 of Ignore AP1 is awkward if you have shields on all your models, and it's called the Aquilian Shield, and their whole thing is defending everybody, blah, blah, blah. They're the bodyguard dudes. The point is, being Aquilian Shield makes your spear guys act like shield guys defensively.
Right. It gives you that ability, essentially.
Yeah, because the problem with the shield, it's not exacts. I know there's minor differences, but the problem with the shield is you have a 2-up save. You equip the shield, you have a 1-up save, which is still a 2-up save, but you ignore AP -1. So trait 2 does nothing for you.
Right.
If you have the spear, AP -1 is now ignored in the same way as it would be if you had the shield. It only really matters at AP -2. Now there's a difference with the shield versus the spear, blah, blah, blah. Because once you get past a certain point, then both of them hit the invuln anyway.
Right, exactly.
It's only a couple points higher for that invuln.
Yeah, and it's one of those that, like, if you're taking the shield, you're always good against, like, everything. but you're losing out on actually being able to kill people.
Yes, it does lose out on damage.
If you take the spear, you're like, okay, well, I'm losing some defense, but I should be able to kill him. If you take the spear with Aquilian Shield as your host, then you basically have the defenses of the shield when it matters, because you're worried about like lots of attacks that are just gonna go through by sheer numbers, essentially.
And to keep on this of pointing out spears, the Salvus Kata got a meh review, and people got very annoyed at the one stratagem that got nerfed to not work with the Forge World Flyboys, the Venatari.
Sure.
Because it calls out auric weapons. If you're going to be stuck using auric weapons, the best shooting option is basically the spear. For a spammable, like, you're not going to want to use the pistol.
Right.
So the spear is rapid fire 1. So if you're in half range, you get 2 shots per model. Not the best, but it's at 4 -1 flat 2 damage, which is very solid offense for you're essentially firing a heavy bolter.
Yeah, I was like, that's solid for Custodes shooting.
Yeah. It's very good shooting. And if you're in Salvus, for 2 turns, you could basically just double your shooting. Another thing I'll point out is I consider the average play pattern, I know this isn't always the case, but the average play pattern for me with Katas is on turn 1, Callistus, basically universal, because you're going to make it your primary. Turn 1, you're going to use it to get advances up the board really reliably. Because in everything else, other than Aquilian Shield, you want to be up in melee combat with Custodes.
I mean, even Aquilian Shield is like, you want to get there eventually, probably.
Sure. But in Aquilian Shield, I would argue, start in Salvus.
So you get the 4-inch range.
Turn 1, you go with plus 4 inches to range, so plus 2 for rapid fire, 14 inches your range.
Yeah.
And you get 2 turns of double shooting.
Yeah.
So you're going to get to pump out a lot of range damage for a Custodian.
Your opponents are not going to be expecting Custodians to do range damage. Like, that's just not something that during deployment and setting your units up, you don't think about Custodians killing your dudes and shooting. Like, that's just not what you think of.
It's a trick that gets a lot less good depending on your opponent, and if your opponent is very aware of your subfaction stuff and the shenanigans you can do.
Yeah.
That makes it worse, and it's just certain opponents it won't be as good against. But like, if we're not going up against Death Guard, who don't give a shit about 2 damage ranged weapons,
yeah.
But like, if we're going against Marines and stuff, you could mulch them on their way to you.
Yeah.
Like, to the point where half of those fuckers ain't there when they get to you.
Yeah, and then good luck actually trying to kill a Custodes.
Who ignores AP -1. Nice chainswords, idiot.
Just the fact that they're Custodes, killing so many models before they get to you, you're so defensive that, like, they've lost out so much, because they need to do an overwhelming amount of damage, essentially, to get through your defenses.
Yeah.
But the stratagem Shield of Honors,
it's interesting.
It seems like it could be very good in certain cases to have it as the, like, fallback plan kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the super bodyguard. It only works on infantry characters, so you can't use it on a bike captain for pure cheese. But it's very awkward for your opponent to be 1.1 inches away from your character and unable to fire a melta into his head. Yeah. Because 5 inches behind him is some other dudes.
Yep.
And you're just like, I'm pay CP, no shooting him. And they're like, what the fuck? I'm an inch away from him, I can't shoot him?
And, like, that's the thing, is, like, I don't think this will happen too often, just because, you know, you're moving your army in ways that this doesn't generally come up. But when it does, 1 CP will be a very nice option to have.
It lets you be very bold with your characters who can heroic.
That's true.
You can pump them right onto the front line, just pay a CP. They can't get shot even though they're the closest model.
Yeah.
So it has uses. You have to be clever to use it, which I know is a lot sometimes to ask out of people playing Warhammer. But
yeah,
if you're clever, this actually has a lot of really mean uses. There's some good gotcha moments you can get out of it. The other part of that is your character's heroic and all of your core units heroic.
Right.
It's obnoxious if you've never played against an army that has heroic on every unit.
Yeah, you basically don't get to do what you want if they don't want you to do that. Like, you have to ask, please, thank you, can I deal with this person?
It's more, you don't get to snipe the combat you want. You get the combat they want you in.
Yeah.
Because you're going to charge Unit A, Unit B is going to be within 3 inches, and then they're going to join the fray, and suddenly that fight that looked okay doesn't look okay anymore.
Yeah.
So the Warlord trait here is also fantastic. This is one of the few Warlord traits that I think actually argues with the core Warlord trait pool.
I mean, the thing is like, when it's good, it's really good, right?
Yeah, and again, I always point out these defensive ones, Bike Captains is my go-to, because if you're spending 200 points on a model, it better be damn good at staying alive.
Yeah, you don't want to just get yeeted off the board turn 1.
Yeah, so I really like it from that. And the shield relic is just good. There's no getting around it. It's just a good-ass relic.
Yeah, but I mean, you do have to take the shield.
Yeah, which is awkward, because if you're taking the shield, you're taking the sword.
Yeah, and we just talked about how the trait 2 in the fighting style works well if you're not doing a shield, so...
And it's like one of the few factions where I would look at the relic weapons and maybe look into one, but I'm like, if I'm stuck with the sword anyway... I guess you could take the relic sword is actually pretty decent.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, wait, no, because you can't take 2 relics, because this is replacing the relic. So therefore, you're stuck with the normal sword. Yeah, that just gets right back to my point. I'm stuck with, like, the shield is a good relic. It's just, it's a little sad that, I don't know how many characters I give a shit about with a shield. I guess if you have it on, like, your banner guy and you give him the shield upgrade,
that maybe.
Could be good, but it's going to be hard to find the use case that I want. But the Warlord trait is a really good Warlord trait.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of Aquilian Shields. I think people gave them a little bit of shit when they got revealed because they're not as overtly powerful as some of the other ones. You have to kind of like look at the whole package and think about how you're going to build your army around it.
A lot of Aquilian Shield feels like you have to set up in a way, both in your army composition and during play, to fully utilize Aquilian Shield and its powerful effects, but like it does have effects that work pretty well once you actually do it. So, and
I'd say it's the something different alternate programming you want later in a codex where you've been playing, 20, 30 games with it. You're like, I want to do something weird this game.
You've played enough Emperor's Chosen. You want to do something different.
I'm going to play Gunline Custodes.
Yeah.
That'll be cool. And then you set up your list and you play Aquilian Shield and you get multiple turns of shooting twice.
And I like that as just like having an option. That's sweet. And I think that's why I do like the fact that all of these are so far pretty different from each other. They do different things.
And speaking of different, let's talk about White Scars. I mean, Solar Watch.
Right, Solar Watch. So, Solar Watch's fighting style is Talon Sortie. The trait 1 is add 1 to advance and charge rolls made for units with this trait. If a unit with this trait has the Implacable Vanguard ability, add 7 inches to the move characteristic of models in this unit instead of 6 inches. Trait 2 is units with this trait are eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which they fell back. And their kata is Callistus.
So Callistus is, of course, the one that I said is my go-to first kata. It's your movement kata. Stance 1. Each time this unit advances, roll 1 additional d6 and discard one of the results. Stance 2. Each time this unit makes a normal move or advance in your movement phase, in the following shooting phase, it counts as having remained stationary.
Solar Watch's stratagem is the Eagle's Strike. 1 CP, any phase when an enemy warlord is destroyed by a Solar Watch unit from your army. Until the end of battle, each time a combat attrition test is taken for an enemy unit, subtract 1 from that test.
And their warlord trait is Sally Forth. It's cringe in a whole different direction.
Yeah. It's like the exact opposite side of the cringe spectrum, but continue.
At the start of your charge phase, select 1 friendly Solar Watch infantry within 6 inches of this warlord. Until the end of phase, that unit is eligible to charge in a turn in which it advanced. And their relic is the Swift Silver Talon. Solar Watch model with a Guardian Spear. The bearer can shoot and charge in a turn in which it fell back. Yes, part of that is redundant with trait 2.
Yeah.
This relic replaces the Guardian Spear, blah, blah, blah. It has a Rapid Fire 1, Strength 4, AP -2, Damage 2 profile for shooting, And in melee, it has strength +2, AP -4, damage flat 2.
AP -4. That's nice.
Solar Watch is your move,
Yeah.
fast boys. What is with the Imperium and when you color armor white, you're the fast subfaction?
Which is weird, right? Like, why
Not red to go with orcs. Yeah, I know.
But I mean, I guess they can't copy orcs.
So for me, Solar Watch screams because of that second ability, Cycle Charge.
Yep.
And what better to cycle charge with than a bunch of incredibly mobile flying bikes? Your trait 1 means those bikes are also advancing 7 inches when they advance.
Which is dumb.
And because Callistus is your preferred kata, you are probably already picking it first, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, if you're picking Callistus, it's usually first.
Especially if you're in Solar Watch. Like, that's what you're trying to do. Like, you've designed the army to do that kind of stuff.
And you can basically just choose if you want stance 1 twice, which is meh to me.
I could see it being useful, but yeah.
Yeah, or you can do the advance and shoot normally with basically your whole army.
Yeah.
Do that for 2 straight turns on turn 1 and 2 is pretty dirty. Because, like, if we're going bike heavy, bikes are the best anti-tank in this army. They're essentially a Dark Lance, for anyone who doesn't know. They're like strength 8, AP -4, D3 +3 or something. I'm going off memory. They're strength 8, AP -4, D3 +3. Damn, I'm good.
It's pretty good, dude. Well done.
So, yeah. So you're basically looking at bikes equipped with Dark Lances. And anyone who's played against Drukhari can tell you how much they love getting hit with Dark Lances.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Remove the model. It does a lot.
Yeah.
So you've got your bikes able to just advance anywhere on the board, fire off those mean-ass rounds. On turns where they charge, they can just then fall back and charge, or if they get tagged, who cares? Fall back and charge, just like the good old days of 8th edition.
I think that's my biggest thing is, like, even if your opponent puts a sacrificial unit to tie him up, it doesn't actually tie him up. You just fall back and charge anyways.
Yeah.
So
I think the only thing, it's very much for balance. This would not be okay, guys. The only thing is sally forth, targeting infantry means the bike can't have the bikes advance and charge, but that would be silly. You would have 100% guaranteed charges on turn 1 across the fucking board with this faction if you could do that.
yeah, but at the same time, like, the Warlord trait does allow you to not just always have bikes. Like, you can do Solar Watch with non-bike armies.
Yeah, like, their Terminators move 6 by default. So if you're advancing, doing the, like, advancing with advantage, basically, by stance 1.
Yeah.
And you get to advance and charge, or, you have a big squad of infantry, like 6 Terminators.
A big squad. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
That's the cap.
I know.
That's all you get in this army. That's 780 points or something.
That's still funny.
You get the big squad of Terminators. You slam them in with an advance and charge. That's a lot of value out of a Warlord trait. So I think it's actually a really good Warlord trait to pick up, especially since you're the mobile army. The mobile Warlord trait's going to go further here.
The stratagem.
Yeah, it's terrible. I'm not going to defend that strat.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not good.
No, it's ass. This should have been 0 CP. If it was 0 CP, it would be a nothing, but it would be a nothing. Not a, why did I waste time reading this?
Yeah.
You could be like, yeah, this doesn't happen. But, like, okay, so I have to pay a CP after destroying their Warlord.
Yes.
What do I get out of it? Well, since you've destroyed their Warlord, the game's already probably yours.
I mean, not necessarily, but you're in a good spot.
You're in a good spot in this game. And now it's like, their combat attrition tests are a bit worse. Oh, gee. How great.
The thing that I hate about this is it's like, the combat attritions are just slightly worse.
Yeah.
It would be different if, like, oh, you killed their Warlord, and now their combat attrition is just awful.
Yeah. Or there's the real problem of, you still have to deal with the fact that half the armies in this game can't have leadership crap modified for some reason, which makes that even more situational. And then, like, what are you using on? A guy who bought a war boss and a bunch of boys? Stop beating up children.
Yeah.
Like, They have bad enough leadership problems. You don't have to use a CP to make it worse.
I was excited by the relic until I realized, or you pointed out, that
Trait 2 makes the relic halfway useless.
yeah, because I was like, oh man, being able to shoot and charge when it fell back, that seems pretty good.
The problem is bikes still, if you give them the big-ass gun, if they get tied up in combat, they cannot fall back and shoot.
Right.
So this would let your warlord fall back and shoot, but that's not the case, because he can't equip this as the bike guy.
I mean, I still think that there is a Solar Watch list that isn't just bikes, and like it could be useful to have this relic.
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying, like, that would make the relic weapon useful if it was actually unlocking the bike's cannon as the real secret mode.
Yes. So the relic's fine.
Yeah.
But Solar Watch as a whole seems pretty good when you're really taking advantage of just the sheer mobility.
Yeah, it's all about the traits and warlord trait to me. Like, if you want to be the mobile Custodes, this is the one for you.
Yep.
And I like that we're 5 in at this point, and I have a reason to play every single subfaction. So let's talk about the 6th.
The 6th and last one is Emissaries Imperatus. So their fighting style is Heralds of the Throne. Their trait 1 is at the start of the fight phase. If a unit with this trait is within engagement range of any enemy units, it can fight first that phase. Trait 2 is each time a model in a unit with this trait makes an attack, you can ignore any or all modifiers to a hit and wound roll. The kata is Conservi.
Conservi is the last one of these katas. It is situational but incredibly strong, as anyone who's played competitive play can tell you. So, Conservi's stance 1. A unit can perform an action in a turn in which it advanced or fell back. That's already very good.
Hell yeah.
Stance 2 is while this unit is performing an action, it can shoot without it failing.
Dude, that's so good.
As a Necron player, am I allowed to bitch yet? Can I please bitch about how much strictly better everything is than our stupid, you must guess on which turn you're going to need one of these traits and be within 9 of the certain guy so that it fucking works in the first place, and then you find out that, oops, I was off by a turn, so now it's useless?
Yeah.
Yeah, Conservi dances circles around Storm or whatever, Sudden Storm.
So Emissaries Imperatus's stratagem is Into the Darkness. It's 2 or 3 CP, start of the first battle round before the first turn. Select one Emissaries Imperatus core unit from your army. That unit can make a normal move as if it were your movement phase, but must end that move more than 9 inches away from any enemy models. If all players have units that can move before first turn begins, the player is taking the first turn moves first. If the unit contains 4 or more models, it's 3 CP, otherwise 2 CP. The Warlord trait is Voice of the Emperor. Add 3 inches to the range of this Warlord's aura abilities to a max of 12 inches, and they note that it's already added into the actual Voice of the Emperor aura, which this Warlord has the following ability, Voice of the Emperor. While a friendly Adeptus Custodes or Anathema Psychana unit is within 9 inches of this model, add 1 to the leadership characteristic of models in that unit.
Yeah, that's not great.
Finally, their relic, Halo of the Torchbearer. So this is for Emissaries Imperatus only. And they get, the bearer has the following ability, Halo of Torchbearer, which is an aura. While a friendly Emissaries Imperatus unit is within 3 inches of this model, it can ignore any or all modifiers to its move characteristic, advance, and charge rolls. It also has, at the start of the fight phase, roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 3 inches of this model. On a 3+, that enemy suffers 1 mortal wound, or d3 mortal wounds if that unit's leadership is 7 or less.
Okay, this is not my favorite.
No, but it does have strengths.
And some of my preferred arguments for this get completely nixed by that stratagem that Emperor's Chosen has.
Yes.
It's very awkward that this has some situational traits, and Emperor's Chosen can just choose to have them only when they're relevant.
Right, and that's kind of the thing, is like both the traits in the fighting style are good. It's
They're
just
okay.
They're good in specific times, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not generally good.
Yeah, I don't think I can argue too much for the traits carrying this one, which is rough because I don't think any of them have bad traits except for this one.
It's just one of those that they're a bit too niche when they're going to be really useful. That said, Conservi is really good for the fact of just winning the game, right? Like point-based objective stuff, actions, that's how you do it. That's how you win the game.
I think this one is hard to build an army for. You have to break out your mission pack and see if you can't really abuse 2 turns of doing a bunch of actions and still shooting and being able to move very quickly to exactly where you need to be to perform the action with the correct unit type. You're going to have to build your army like that. In my opinion, that's the only way you're carrying emissaries. You have to have the kata be useful in your army. You and I are going to bring up the exact same fun thing you can do as a one-off. Go for it. I'll let you steal it.
I'll let you do it because you actually know more about it on the specifics.
Okay, so Into the Darkness.
Yes, the stratagem is very good.
Some would say Necrons choose only to play a single subfaction in their entire codex, specifically because pregame moves are busted.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so strong. Being able to redeploy while also being able to move and change like the deployment zone is just, it's so very strong. But go ahead with how you can bust this stratagem in half.
Let's just go to Forge World. I tried to not mention Forge World stuff too much in this, other than Salamon, which you can't avoid talking about.
Yeah.
If we go to Forge World and we spend $780 billion, you can have a slightly different looking Dreadnought who has a spear. The Achilles. The Achilles is core, meaning it can be targeted by Into the Darkness. It has a move of 9. So pre-game, you roll off, you win the roll, your Achilles shoves 9 inches forwards for 2 CP. Movement phase, shoves 9 forward again. You're 18 inches up the board on what is usually a 22-inch to 24-inch no man's land.
Something like that. You
now get to make a 4 to 6-inch charge, which is incredibly reliable with a reroll. Unless you're Eric in a psychic phase.
Yeah, I was like, unless it's a psychic test for me, then...
You can always fail.
Then it's a 1 and a 2, so... Try again and get a 1 and a 2 again, but...
Or 1 and a 2 into 1 and a 1.
Oh, I hate that. That's painful. I hate that. Vietnam flashbacks going on there.
So anyway, it's a very strong trick. There's several things you could use it on. Because it counts models instead of power level or anything, the Achilles is one of the best things to use this on, in my opinion. There might be like some really spicy thing I forgot, but an Achilles is core, single model, so it's a 2 CP thing, and that thing fucks. So you're going to get into combat and delete a knight.
I am kind of surprised that this doesn't say non-vehicle or anything like that. It's just Emissaries and Peyruis core unit.
I think they put core specifically so that like you might want to use a Dreadnought with it, because when you balance these, you look at the rest of what this is offering you, and it's like, we can pump some extra power into this.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to often do this for 3 CP, using it on a unit with 4 or more models. That seems unlikely.
Especially because the things that have 4 or more models, other than the bikes, they don't tend to be moving this far.
Yeah.
So like, okay, bikes getting a full pregame move, followed by a full move, followed by shooting meltas, followed by charging, is dirty for 3 CP. It's a thing you could do. So you get 14 inches, you're in the enemy's deployment zone before you start firing on turn 1. And then you charge.
Yeah, I could see that being worth 3 CP.
Yeah, that's probably like the best case scenario, although that is a lot of eggs in one basket. Like this is
That's my issue with that.
This is to the point where the only time this is going to be good is once as a joke, or if it's actually good, expected to be blown the fuck up by an FAQ at some point.
Yeah, I am actually expecting it to be one of those, like, you're using it for the 2 CP, one model that just fucks hard, and you basically tie up their entire army to deal with that on turn 1. And that's really good. Like, it is. Or it at least has the potential to be very good, in my opinion. The Warlord trait, I feel like there's usefulnesses to it, but...
Warlord trait has a single use, in my opinion, which is you use it as your extra Warlord trait on a flag bearer model.
Yeah.
Because they have multiple auras attached to them. You're actually getting good use out of getting the aura bigger. I think that's about the only time I'd ever look at it, but it's a solid case. Now, the relic, in my opinion, is not
It's
great.
cool. I like it. I think it's cool. But then again, I'm the mortal wound guy. Like, anytime I can do mortal wounds, it's something that I fucking... Yeah, let's do it.
So normally, in most codexes, you have the silver bullet subfaction that is usually anti-psyker subfaction.
Right.
In this one, that's covered by a generic thing they do,
Yeah.
which is just Emperor's Chosen. It's already been a Custodes shtick forever. They have it on all their data sheets to have a 6-up anyway, so changing it to a 4-up, but that's already covered. So they went, we need our anti-something subfaction in this 6th slot. They were like, well, we already covered anti-psyker, so what do we have left? They're like, anti-modifiers subfaction.
Yes.
The second trait is ignoring hit and wound roll modifiers.
Yeah.
And this relic ignores an aura of ignoring advanced charge roll modifiers and move characteristic modifiers.
Yeah. I mean, those come up, and it is really annoying when it happens.
And technically, I guess you could give the relic and the warlord trait to make the relic a 6-inch aura of ignoring all that.
I mean, to be honest, like, I feel like that's what you would do if you're taking the relic. You're taking the warlord trait.
Sure. But, like, we're doing all this work to avoid modifiers. When is this a thing?
I mean, you also get the mortal wounds. Like,
sure.
That's a nice little cherry on top of that.
It's not a big cherry, though, with the whole on a 3-up deal immortal.
Yeah.
Ooh, D3 if it's got a bad leadership. Oh boy, something that I probably don't need help dealing damage to.
Right. Yeah.
I guess an orc vehicle takes D3 damage, get fucked. But yeah, it's my least favorite of all of them. It still has an argument. I still like Into the Darkness carrying this.
Yes.
But I'm very sour that when I read through all these and started analyzing for the show, I ran into the problem of Emperor's Chosen made Emissaries even worse.
Yeah.
It was very awkward, and that made me dislike Emperor's Chosen when I was like writing up my thoughts. I was like, it's weird because it's not its fault. It's good.
Yeah.
I don't like what it's doing from a design standpoint.
I mean, Emissaries and Prettiest is something that can legitimately be chosen, but you have to really craft your list around it, around the stratagem Into the Darkness and the fact that you get the Kata Conservi as your favorite Kata.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're building your list around to take advantage of.
Before we finish, we need to have one last debate, which is about the canon color schemes. Emperor's Chosen, the generic golden dudes with some red hair on top. Boring. Shadow Keepers, the all black sweet look with gold trim and red on the shoulders. Pretty sexy.
It feels like Shadowkeepers is like the emo kid that thinks he's cool.
It is. I mean, you should, yeah. When you figure out Shadowkeepers lore, they're the edgy kid who they're in the basement. Their lore is they're in the basement.
Which I guess that's fine.
They're 10,000 years old. They can't get a job. They're still sitting in dad's basement.
Yeah.
Just polishing their relics. Sitting on 4chan in the dark in their all black armor.
Yep.
Dreadhost, very boring. You are just the exact same as Emperor's Chosen, but you painted some blackish gray on your shoulder pad. That is boring. Aquilian Shield, you're the winner. You understand that the best color to go with gold is purple.
And you understand that SPQR is the greatest thing in Rome Total War.
You're goddamn right it is, boy. Solar Watch, I've seen really cool paint schemes for, but if you're going to do the white and gold, ignore the red cannon color for the third color, go with purple. It looks better.
My problem is, like, most of the time, whites don't look great when it's just white.
White is very hard. It's actually, you should aim for a stone gray with some white highlights.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's like you use the white for, like, your lighting type thing, and then, like, grays and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's just, like, all white, it doesn't look intimidating. Right?
Emissaries, I'm going to be real with you. I can't tell a difference at all between you and Emperor's Chosen. I'm starting to get suspicious that they made you up for 9th edition so that they could have 6. I haven't checked to see if you were an 8th.
I have no idea, but I'm with you. I'm not seeing much difference there.
All right, that wraps up our main discussion for the episode. Thank you all for joining us. Let's hit the outro for the evening.
Sounds good.